Hello everyone, I'm Nusrat from QTVS and today we are going to understand the concept of time. Time is a very important topic to study and understand. As you all know, we use clocks to determine the timing. What time is it? If someone asks you, you quickly look at the clock. Nowadays, most of the clocks that we use are digital. How does a digital clock look like? It looks something like this. And the time shown may be written in this way. The first number indicates the number of hours, and the second number here indicates the minutes that have been passed. So, how you read this as 11:15? That means 15 minutes past 11. Let's write one more example of a digital clock. This is a digital clock, and suppose it shows 7:10. That means 10 minutes past 7. But digital clocks are not the only clocks that are used to understand or read the time. So, what is another kind of clock that is used to look at the time? The other clock that is used to look at the time is called as the analog clock. You might have seen these clocks a lot. You may see it hanging on a wall of your house, at your school, at the restaurant. Many places you find these analog clocks. So, this is how an analog clock looks like. So, an analog clock is made up of a face and hands. Yes, you might find this funny, but as you have a face, you have two hands. An analog clock also has face and hands. So analog clock is quite different from a digital clock, and reading time using an analog clock is also different. So how do you read time using analog clocks? Before we understand how to read time, let us understand what is face and what are hands of the digital clock quickly. So face is nothing but the dial, the front part of the clock. You can see this circular part. This is called as the dial or the front part, which is also called as the face of the analog clock. And hands, if you can see, these are two hands of the clock which spin inside the face. The face consists of numbers, these hands, and also small markings in between. These hands are used to show the time. The short hand, this is the short hand. It has two hands, one is short and one is long. So the short hand is the hour hand. And this long hand is the minute hand. You might find this funny. Like we have faces and hands, an analog clock also has faces and hands. So these are the two important and main parts of an analog clock. Now let us understand how to read time on an analog clock. As I explained, the shorthand shows the number of hours. The shorthand shows the number of hours, and the long hand shows the number of minutes that have been passed. So if I look at this clock, what I have drawn here, the hour hand here points at 3. So 3 are the number of hours. So 3 something is the time. Now you look at the minute hand. Now the minute hand points at 7. And if you see the markings on the clock, you have only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, how do we read the minutes on an analog clock? That is also quite easy. You just have to skip count by 5. So, if the minute hand points at 1, it is actually 5 minutes. We start from 0, which is pointing towards 12, 0 minutes. Then 1 is 5 minutes, 2 is 10 minutes. If the minute hand points at 3, it's 15 minutes. Then 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and lastly it comes to 0, which is 60 minutes. So this is how you read the minutes. Now here, if you see, the minute hand is pointing towards 7. That means 35 minutes have passed. So this is 3:35. The time here shows 3:35. Now let us read the time in this analog clock. What time does it show? If you look at the hour hand, the small hand, it is pointing towards 2. So it is 2 hours and some minutes. If you look at the minute hand, it points towards 10. So if you skip count by 5, you come to know that 10 indicates 40 minutes. So the time is 2:40. Also need to understand a few things related to time. One of those things is AM and PM. You might have seen in various examples, many times we say AM and PM. We make use of these words. What does AM mean? AM is ante-meridian, means before midday. And PM stands for post-meridian, means post-midday. Right? So now, if it is noon, in the afternoon, we write it as 12 PM. And if it is midnight, we write it as 12 AM. So from midnight 12 till the afternoon 12, you have 12 hours. So these 12 hours, in between whatever hours are there, you will write it as AM. So if I say I had my breakfast, so we know that the meal that we eat in the morning is called as breakfast. So if I say I had my breakfast at 7 o'clock, so I will write that 7 o'clock as AM. I had my breakfast at 7 o'clock AM. If I say I had my dinner at 8 o'clock, you know the meal of the day which we eat at night is called as dinner. So I write it as 8 o'clock PM. So this is what you need to remember regarding time. There are few more things that you need to remember about time. Time is a vast concept. You need to remember 1 year has 12 months, and also you can say it as 365 days. But when it's a leap year, it has 366 days. A month has 30 or 31 days depending on the month. But February has only 28 days, but if it's a leap year, it has 1 day extra. That means in leap year, February has 29 days. A week has 7 days. 1 day has 24 hours. An hour is made up of 60 minutes, and a minute is made up of 60 seconds. You also need to remember a decade is made up of 10 years. So a span of 10 years is called as a decade. And a century is 100 years. A century is made up of 100 years. These are the basic things that you need to remember regarding time.